Early on when we started doing this class, I realized the issue is not even half learning what to do to write a book. The issue is whatever that thing is that once we know how to do it, we still don't do it. And I always thought the reason I can't scale this to the recording only model is because we need this interaction and this encouragement. But but I think a lot about how to help you guys, stay the course and get the thing done. And and so that this one aspect that we talk about a lot and what I always try to write about is truth. And I'm always just very curious about what happens when we look for the truth and then speak the truth and trusting God that the outcome of the truth is always going to be the right outcome. And that has a lot to do, usually when I'm thinking about, I'm thinking in terms of what we're writing, when I'm thinking about in terms for us. But um, it definitely has a lot to do with how we live and how we accept reality, the reality of what it takes to, live for Jesus, to have a good marriage, to do anything requires us to always look at the truth. Like, what's the truth of the situation? What's the reality here? I don't know if you'd seen it, but I had written a while back about I had a rough summer financially, and then I just kind of woke up one day and thought, well, wait a second. This isn't just like arbitrary. Like, I can actually do better if I do this and this and this more than this and this and this. I have to understand the reality of what actually of my work pays the bills and how much of that do I have to do, even if it's not the stuff I love the most. And then in my case, it's ghostwriting. Ghostwriting pays far more than anything that I do, and I like it the least. But I do like it, I mean, I like it the least because it's just more fun for me to express what I want to write rather than trying to figure out what somebody else is writing. It's good. It's a great job. Pays very well. And I realized, oh, it's simple math. It's accepting the math. If
Mhm.
I write 3,000 words a day for 5 days a week, 50, at least 50 weeks a year, then not only will I pay the bills, I will actually make a ton of money. Like, and and to be honest, it's nice to have a ton of money when you can get it because um it's by which you buy your values, the ones that cost money. Not they don't all cost money, but many of them do. Things you want to give to, things you want to make, things you want to, places you want to go. And so it was just like, to me, it's a very underrated thing. And I realized this morning, okay, if I'm writing 3,000 words a day, not including my blogs, just ghostwriting, I'm writing the equivalent of a book every 3 weeks. I'm like, well,
Wow.
gosh, if I can write a book every 3 weeks, then
Woo!
I know my students can write a book in a year. Like, and it's a matter of just accepting what, and I say a book, 160-page book, not a massive, not the spiritual puzzle. That would take a little longer, but it's just a simple matter of words on the page, words on the page. And there is there is something that can sometimes get in the way, and that's a kind of a mysticism of what's God calling me to do? Like, like when in the summer I was extremely busy because I was really wanting to do certain things, but those certain things, they just weren't necessarily going to pay off in a financial way. And that's totally fine so long as you understand you still have to pay the bills. And
Mm.
and when I had a kind of a I had kind of a coach once who helped me understand that, in values, there's these domains of health and rejuvenation, relationships, career, and wealth. And that's the first person I ever heard talk about wealth and career as two separate things. And the point was like, you may have a calling to something that doesn't pay very well. And you have financial needs beyond what that calling pays, in which point you have to figure out, well, how are you still going to pay for your life? This particular guy was a philosopher, but he owned 10 pieces of property that somebody else managed so that he could live his life as a philosopher. And he had no desire to be doing real estate. He got no joy from it, but he figured out a way with a partner to make it pay without having to, without having to do anything with it. He had to do something with it at first, but it was like he moved himself into that place. And it's grace when our career and wealth are the same thing. But but again, I'm just using that as an example. This is this is truth. It's accepting the truth. Like, I will not write a book if I don't write so many words, and I will not write so many words if I don't decide how many words I have to write in some, each day, and just say, hey, no matter what, this project is about words on the page. And if I don't write the words, the book's not going to get done. So then my life got so much easier when I like, hey, this is just how it is, and I can do whatever I want if I write 3,000 words. Um, so that I always want to put that before us, because I think that's underrated in almost every category that I come across, where people think almost of everything except just reality. Like, just what is the reality? Was it you guys I was telling? But watching were we talking about this recently, where I was watching a trader who is like a commodities trader, and he was talking about values, and he was just talking about how we traders, we understand something that most people don't understand, that everything has a cost, and your life is what you value. It's you really think about what it is that you want to do, and then
Mm.
you put time and money toward it, and you understand that because you're doing that, you're not going to be able to do this. And so, like, this particular guy always got a really nice haircut at a nice barber shop, and he liked the experience, and he made sure that was something he valued, so he was going to do it. So I thought about that. I was like, well, I don't value cars, like nice cars. So I still have a 2012, minivan with a hole in the front as of last winter because I ran into somebody. But it's like, yeah, I just don't really care about cars. I don't want a car payment.
Mm.
So I want to use that for something else, and in our case, I value the forced time with my family from owning only one car, even though we can afford, more cars. I value that we're forced to be together if we have one car. And we're forced to rely on Sherry's mom sometimes and let her help us. And she actually really likes it. And, all those things that you just sit and just think about values. And if the book is a value, then the words are about, and then you just have to, like, just really intelligently focus on, like, okay, where does everything go? And in that way, it's incredible how much we can get done. Because a book, most people that haven't tried to write a book think it's impossible for the average person, because it just sounds like so much. I heard about some kids the other day, teenagers. So that's a 5-page paper we have to write. I'm like, it's like,
Oh man.
so that. But while I was praying, so that I'm not even going to let you comment. I just want to let you, like, just kind of think about that. I'll send you the recording if you want to listen to it again. But while we were praying, Sarah, I started to think about Labrie. There's something, I don't know, maybe just because you were praying, it reminded me that you'd spent time at Labrie. Do you guys know Labrie and Francis Schaeffer?
Oh man. It is
No.
so good. It is so good. He started it almost in the 50s. Jeff, you talk about it.
Well, you'll know more than I do about the details, Sarah, because you've actually experienced it. I've only read about it. But Bob, this is your jam. You would
Oh
actually,
man. Bob, if Bob had gone, he'd still be there.
yeah, Bob. So basically, Francis Schaeffer is a worldview guy.
Yeah,
And
I've read some of his stuff, but
okay, so Labrie is the institute, basically. Started, the
okay.
first one was in Switzerland, is that right?
Yes, and I have been there. If you can imagine, it was one of my. If we were going to be in Europe, I said we got to go there. It's incredible story how we got in. Usually they're booked out, they don't even advertise. And they said, yeah, you can stay in the egg house. And I didn't care. Like you, I don't value if it's, I thought, well, I sleep with the chickens.
So literally an egg house. This
No,
is not
but this
something.
is what the egg house was. Here's this beautiful chalet that faces the French Alps. I'm sorry, I'm getting off on a story. Anyway, and the egg house, two ladies had sold eggs for 11 years and built a private chalet for all the speakers that come from around the world. They gave us the private chalet.
Oh wow.
Oh,
But they
wow.
called it the egg house. I said, shit, I would stay in the egg house.
I'll stay in the hen house.
And
Give me some hay.
we opened the shutters of the egg house, and I wept. We looked at the French Alps, and I thought, Lord, this would be your kind of egg house.
Yeah. Yeah. So Schaefer wrote this book called How Then Shall We Live? And it's a worldview book, and it's like, and I actually got, I don't think that's the first thing I read. I think the first thing I read that was similar was one of his disciples, Nancy Piercy, who wrote a book called Total Truth.
Mm, mm.
And where she kind of pulls apart the fact value dichotomy, just basically like how does faith play out in the world, in arts,
Right.
in business, all these other spheres, and I just feel like that's your books. I mean, that's like, that's what we're speaking to, and I still don't know. I don't know how to reconcile. We are working for Jesus to come back and bring something new, and we are building for the kingdom on this earth. And we are meant to bring the influence of Christ into every sphere,
Correct.
Um, I honestly, I mean, I obviously believe it's both, but um, but it's hard for the way my brain works to be about both at the same time. It's easier for me to think, yeah, the world is in darkness. We're trying to save souls and get them. Tom's book is let's get the souls saved. That's
Yeah.
the most important thing, but your book is let's see how then shall we live in this earth, under the spiritual reality, and Richard, yours is somewhere in the middle there, I think, being kingdom soldiers applies both directions. And N.T. Wright, when he talks about not building the kingdom, because we're not building the kingdom, but wouldn't that be simpler if we are just like trying to build the kingdom? Like we're just crusading around trying to build up, these theocracies. But he's like, we're building for the kingdom. So like we're doing stuff on earth that shows up, as the building blocks and the essence of the things that we're going to see when Jesus returns.
Yeah.
And so we really, in that way, I'd really like that. And we're doing both. And he was using 1 Corinthians 15, which is the whole thing about like the trumpet shall sound, the dead shall be raised. And, but then he goes, so then he ends the chapter. Do you guys know how the chapter ends?
Oh, remind us.
So let us be about the work of the Lord. So,
Yeah.
and then the very next verse is 1 Corinthians 16, 1. Now about the offering, and it's like, yeah, let's give ourselves to the work of the Lord in this, in this world. So that's why I feel really committed to your books, because um almost everybody is writing something, especially Sarah, the fact that you're a Christian writing a secular book, that's so powerful. That's such a calling that you have from God. You know, it reminds me of Wilberforce, who goes and is like, experiences God and goes, well, should I go be a pastor? And the answer was probably not. You're probably called to be a politician and end slavery. I mean,
Oh.
you know, and and the last thing I'll say about it is Covenant Seminary in St. Louis is a PCA, Presbyterian seminary. And
Mm.
when I asked somebody that went there, what's the most important thing you learned at Covenant? He goes, probably that I don't have to be a pastor.
Wow.
And I was like, wow, I'm gonna think about that for a long time.